The auction. The room was cold. Not because of the temperature, it was climate-controlled to a precise 21.7 degrees Celsius, but because of the eyes watching her. Kara sat on the edge of a metallic bench, legs swinging above the polished floor, too short to touch the ground. Around her, silent, towering figures studied her behind glass panels. They wore robes, scales, feathers, or exoskeletal armor. Their faces unreadable. Alien. She gripped her threadbare backpack tighter. It was all she had left from Earth. That, and the scar on her wrist from the day the evacuation shuttle door slammed shut before her mother could reach it. "This is Kara Thorne," said a synthetic voice overhead. "Age, 9. Earth origin. Orphaned during planetary destabilization. High adaptive IQ, multilingual, trauma rating, Class 3. Eligible for individual guardianship under Galactic Custodianship Protocol 11.4. A low hum vibrated through the chamber as prospective guardians reviewed her case. Kara didn't understand the words they spoke, but she understood the meaning in their silence. She was being evaluated, auctioned off. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere left to go. Earth was dead. The refugee ships scattered humanity to the stars, some to education programs, some to science enclaves. The lucky ones went to families. Kara hadn't been lucky yet. Until they arrived. 3 beings entered the observation chamber, tall, elegant creatures of crystalline green scales and gold-edged robes. The central figure moved with the measured grace of a predator in full control of its power. Clary. She recognized the species from orientation, cold-blooded, hyperlogical, one of the oldest races in the galactic core. They didn't adopt. They didn't feel. Why were they here? The synthetic voice stuttered slightly as it announced them. Counselor Virex and geneticist Selnari of the Clary Ascendant caste, accompanied by Heir Turok. Special diplomatic clearance granted. Requesting custodianship transfer for Kara Thorne. Kara blinked. Her heart thudded once, then again, louder. The other observers shifted, murmurs rippling in strange, crackling languages. One alien scoffed audibly, another turned and left. No one objected. No one understood. And just like that, it was done. 2 hours later, she stood before the Clary family in a pristine docking bay. A massive ship loomed behind them, its crystalline hull catching starlight like a frozen wave. She stared up at it, dazed. Counselor Virex inclined his head slightly, a gesture she would later learn meant respect. "Kara Thorne," he said in precise, accented standard, "you are now under our protection. You will be educated, provided for, and observed." Selnari stepped forward. Her gaze was sharp, but not unkind. "You are small. Mammalian. Highly emotional. But your biochemistry shows resilience. Curious." Kara didn't know what to say. Her throat ached. She hadn't spoken in hours. "I thank you," she tried. "You will call us guardian," Selnari said. "Not mother. Not father. These are inefficient designations." Turok, their son, older, taller, with sharper scales and colder eyes, snorted. "This one looks fragile. Is it a rescue or an experiment?" Virex turned to him. "It is both. As are we all, in a way." Kara flinched at the word "it," but bit her tongue. They didn't mean harm, she told herself. This was just alien. The ship swallowed them in silence. No welcome party. No soft lights. Just long corridors of polished obsidian and humming conduits. A small chamber was assigned to her, bare, white, and sterilized. She sat on the edge of the sleeping platform and looked at the backpack still clutched in her arms. No one had hugged her. No one had smiled. But she was alive. She was not alone. Somewhere deep inside the ship, her new family was watching, analyzing, maybe even wondering. And Kara, still scared, still grieving, looked up at the ceiling and whispered to herself, "Okay. I'm not broken. I'll show them." Cold blood, warm heart. Kara quickly learned that the Clary didn't believe in doors. Privacy, apparently, was an inefficient concept. Her small chamber had a sliding panel she could activate for solitude, but it was transparent from the outside, for monitoring developmental progress, Selnari explained. They monitored everything. what she ate, how long she slept. Every emotional outburst or hesitation logged into glowing crystal tablets. Kara wondered if this was what being a pet felt like. Still, they never hurt her. Never raised their voices. Never threatened her. In their own strange way, the Tlari were kind. Cold, but consistent. Her room expanded each day, not physically, but with things. A small bookshelf appeared after she spent hours staring at a wall. Digital learning pads loaded with galactic standard came next. Then drawing tools. Selnari had noticed her scribbling with a food stylus on her tray. "We observed pattern repetition," Selnari said one evening, peering at one of Kara's crude sketches. "Symbols without communicative intent. Are these ancestral markings?" "They're doodles," Kara said. "They're just mine." Selnari blinked. Processing. Possibly self-soothing behavior. Retain. Kara kept the drawing anyway. It was a stick-figure version of her and the Tlari standing together, holding hands. She had added big, round eyes and awkward claws to the aliens. They looked ridiculous. But they looked like a family. Tarak found it a few days later. He snorted when he saw it. "You gave us 5 fingers. We only have 4. Your perception is flawed." Kara yanked the paper away. "It's art. It doesn't have to be perfect." He stared at her, puzzled. "Then what purpose does it serve?" She glared at him. "Sometimes things have value because they feel right. You wouldn't get it." Tarak tilted his head. "Correct. I do not." She turned and walked away, furious, and a little sad. No one here understood her. They fed her, housed her, but she might as well have been a curiosity in a zoo. Even her voice felt strange in her own ears now. She hadn't spoken to another human in weeks. But the next morning, she found her picture framed in mineral glass and mounted in the common room. No one mentioned it. No one had to. Mealtimes were the quietest. The Tlari ate nutrient spheres, dense, tasteless things packed with whatever their cold-blooded bodies needed. Kara was given a special dietary supplement, but she missed flavor. Missed home. Sometimes she cried quietly at night, swallowing her sobs so the surveillance drones wouldn't report her emotional instability. One day, Virex invited her to observe a council transmission. She sat cross-legged on the platform beside him while translucent beings from across the galaxy debated trade routes and education quotas. Kara didn't understand most of it. But when Virex spoke, his words carried weight, precision. He always said less than others but meant more. Afterward, he turned to her. "What did you learn?" "That no one listens unless you're quiet first," she replied. He made a low clicking sound. "A chuckle, maybe. You are observant. And intuitive. These are rare traits. Even among my kind." Kara leaned forward. "Then why did you choose me?" Virex paused. A flicker of movement passed through his eye ridge. Subtle, but meaningful. "Your species has a gift. You adapt quickly. You form bonds. Even when logic suggests you should not. That is fascinating. Perhaps even essential." Kara didn't fully understand. But she nodded anyway. Later that week, she confronted the ship's automated learning assistant. The AI had reprimanded her for wasting time by reading the same book 3 times. "I'm learning emotion," she shouted, voice cracking. "Repetition is how I understand the feelings in the story. Not just the words." The drone buzzed and recalibrated. "Emotions are secondary. Your development will be noted." Frustrated, Kara stomped back to her room, only to find Selnari waiting. "I have reviewed your outburst," she said, holding a data slate. "You referenced narrative immersion. That suggests internal modeling of fictional personas. Highly unusual for your age." "It's called imagination," Kara muttered. Selnari stared for a long moment, then did something truly shocking. She sat beside her. Close. Too close, for a Tlari. Kara could feel the dry warmth radiating from her scales. "Teach me." "What?" "I wish to understand what you feel when you read." Kara blinked, uncertain. Then smiled, just a little. "Okay," she whispered. "But I get to pick the book." For the first time in weeks, Kara didn't feel like a specimen. She felt like a person. A small, strange person with messy hair and big feelings, slowly becoming part of a cold-blooded family trying to warm up. The fire within. The training expedition was supposed to be a routine educational exercise, a survival simulation on an uninhabited moon. Kara had begged to go. Selnari hesitated, but Virex approved it. She must face stress in a controlled environment, he said. It will reveal more than study. So Kara packed her minimal supplies and joined 6 Tlari juveniles, including Tarak, on a shuttle to Kasari 4, a dry moon with little atmosphere but stable gravity. The mission: survive for 72 hours, build shelter, maintain a beacon, and practice group problem-solving. The first day went well. Kara was slower and clumsier than the others, but she noticed things they didn't. Tiny fissures in rock formations. The way the shadows moved faster in the afternoon. She made a game of interpreting clouds, something the Tlari found non-functional, but amusing. Then, the storm hit. Solar flares weren't supposed to reach this far. But a freak spike surged through the local star, frying the shuttle's long-range comms and knocking out their automated distress beacon. The backup drone spiraled into a ravine. One of the juveniles panicked and fled before the group could stop them. Kara stood in the middle of the chaos, wind screaming across the dry plain, and realized something horrifying. The Tlari didn't know what to do. They froze. Literally. Tarak was standing near the broken beacon, unmoving. Another juvenile had curled up beneath an outcropping, eyes closed, conserving energy until orders came. They were waiting for hierarchy. Orders. Protocol. But there was no adult here. "Okay," Kara whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Think, think, think." She pulled off her helmet, just long enough to yell. "We need cover. There's a rock overhang near the west ridge. Move." No one responded. Tarak's eyes flicked toward her, uncertain. "Do you want to cook under this radiation storm?" she shouted. "Move." He hesitated, then nodded. "Follow. Obey, human." The others snapped out of their paralysis. One by one, they followed Kara as she led them across the moon's jagged terrain, into a small natural alcove barely big enough for all of them. Inside, huddled under emergency thermal blankets, they waited. Kara rationed water, recited old camping rhymes her father taught her, and, after some coaxing, got them to hum along. She didn't stop moving. Didn't let them panic again. She became their order. By the time the rescue team arrived 12 hours later, the juveniles were calm, fed, and shielded from further exposure. Virex himself descended from the retrieval shuttle, flanked by security officers. When he stepped into the alcove and saw Kara standing over a hand-drawn map of the moon's terrain, explaining escape routes to Tarak, something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition. "You assumed command?" he asked. Kara, exhausted but upright, nodded. "Someone had to." Selnari approached slowly, scanning her vitals with a flick of her clawed device. Heart rate elevated. Minor dehydration. Emotional imprint. Intense. "You functioned under stress." "I didn't freeze," Kara said simply. Tarak stood beside her. "She adapted. We survived because of her." That surprised everyone more than anything. Back aboard the main vessel, Kara was checked, scanned, and allowed to rest. A few hours later, she was summoned to the central hall. She expected reprimands. Warnings. A list of things she should have done differently. Instead, Virex stood before her, wearing a ceremonial sash, something she'd only seen during interstellar broadcasts. "Kara Thorne," he said, voice steady and clear. "Under Tlari Custom Code 93.2, you have demonstrated initiative, leadership, and preservation of kin under duress. These are not qualities expected of your species. They are not even common among ours." Kara blinked. "What does that mean?" Selnari stepped forward. "It means, you are no longer observed. You are acknowledged." Virex reached out and placed a curved, crystalline crest in her hands. It shimmered with her own DNA signature. The symbol of belonging. "We do not give this lightly," he said. "You are now of us." Tarak nodded beside her. "Sister." Kara looked at the crest, then at the 3 aliens before her, once strangers, now something else entirely. I didn't do it to impress anyone, she whispered. I just didn't want anyone to die. Virex's eyes flickered with strange warmth. Precisely. In the dark quiet of her quarters that night, Kara held the crest close. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming something like home. The ship's hallways no longer felt foreign. Where once Kara tiptoed through silent corridors, unsure of herself, now she walked with purpose. She could read most of the glyphs on the walls without help. She knew which doors led to which sections of the vessel. She even knew how to reroute the food dispensers to give her something resembling toast. Selnari had installed a human behavioral study module in the learning terminal, supposedly for research, but Kara suspected it was just an excuse to load more Earth media into the system. Some nights, she caught Selnari watching old animated movies with a squint of confusion and fascination. They exhibit irrational loyalties, the geneticist muttered once, staring at the screen as a cartoon fox leapt into danger to save a friend. That's the point, Kara had replied. It means something even if it doesn't make sense. Selnari didn't argue. She rarely did anymore. Tarak had changed, too. He didn't treat Kara like a curiosity now. He invited her to sparring drills, though she mostly dodged and ran. When they studied, he'd ask her perspective before offering his own. Sometimes they argued. Sometimes they laughed. A real laugh, not that clipped, strange sound she once mistook for annoyance. But the biggest shift came the day the Tlari elders summoned the family to the homeworld. Ceremonial review, Virex explained. Our custody of you must be formalized. Kara stiffened. You mean, like adoption? Not as you understand it. Tlari customs do not name child and parent. We name bonded purpose. If they accept your inclusion, you become part of our legacy. She wasn't sure whether to be honored or afraid. The Tlari homeworld was a marvel, rings of crystal cities suspended over glowing oceans. But beneath the beauty was formality, ritual, and scrutiny. Kara walked behind Selnari and Virex into the Hall of Lineage, a cavernous chamber pulsing with a slow, deep bioluminescence. Rows of high-caste observers lined the balconies. She heard whispers. A few outright scoffed. A mammal. Soft. Fragile. Unfit for our structure. Selnari stepped forward. She endured planetary loss, trauma, alien displacement, and survived a survival test beyond protocol. She exhibits adaptive cognition and emotional reciprocity. She belongs. A shrill voice cut through the chamber. She lacks our blood. Virex turned slowly. So do many we have allied with. Legacy is not confined to bone. Then the elders turned to Kara. They asked no questions. Instead, they presented a memory crystal, an ancient device that would record a truth reflection of Kara's essence. Not her thoughts, but her intentions. Kara hesitated, staring at the sharp, humming prism. If she touched it, it would show them everything. The fear, the grief, the loneliness, the hope, the humanity. She took a deep breath, and laid her hand upon it. Light burst outward. For a moment, the chamber filled with images, Earth's blue sky, her mother's face, fire, running, then the moon mission, her drawing on the wall, Tarak handing her a field ration with an awkward, "You require nourishment." Selnari leaning in to ask about fairy tales, Virex offering her the crest, and her own voice saying, "I didn't do it to impress anyone. I just didn't want anyone to die." The light faded. Silence. Then one of the elders, a being of ancient crystal limbs and flickering eyes, leaned forward. She is young, but she is fire in flesh. A warm blood with cold logic. Emotion with restraint. She is rare. The others murmured. A low pulse of approval rippled through the hall. You are legacy, the elder said. You are chosen. They didn't throw celebrations like humans did. No music, no cake, no hugs. But when they returned to the ship, Kara found something in her room. The walls had been changed. Tiny shifting panels now shimmered in soft blue, reacting to her touch, her favorite earth color. A framed image hung beside her sleep shelf. Not the stick figure family from before, this one had been redrawn. With precision. 4 fingers on each of her alien guardians. She and Tarak stood in the middle. There was a plaque underneath. Family is function formed by choice. Kara smiled. She wasn't an orphan anymore. She wasn't a guest. She was home.